Welcome, friends. We're so glad you've chosen to join us this day as we continue our study of Daniel, prophet of exile. We're going to chapter 4 today, and we hope that you'll be turning toward that chapter and that you'll study along with us as we look at another episode from the life of Daniel and also his interaction with the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. As this chapter opens, we're going to see that for a second time, Nebuchadnezzar dreams a dream that's very troubling to him. And so, as in the first dream recorded in the second chapter of Daniel, he seeks that he might understand what this dream signified, what the meaning of it was. He called for his counselors, for his wise men, his magicians, and asked them if they would interpret the dream. Unlike the first dream, in which he said, I don't remember the dream, and they were to both tell him what the dream was and what it meant. This was not the way with the second dream. He readily rehearses to them what he had dreamed. But at the conclusion of his telling what the dream was, his counselors said, we don't know what it means. And so he was still in the same state of a lack of knowledge and certainly great concern on his part. For he, like in the first dream, having trouble sleeping, it was disturbing him. Once more, Nebuchadnezzar called for Daniel. And when Daniel came in to hear his dream and to give him the interpretation of it, it was not like the first time. When Daniel came this time, it was not a youth that was unknown to the king. For many years, Daniel had been serving in the capacity of the government of Nebuchadnezzar. He'd been trained for 3 years in the knowledge of the Chaldeans and of their ways. And so he had been one that was a friend to the king in serving him in the Babylonian government. And as we look, the dream is told to Daniel by Nebuchadnezzar. As Nebuchadnezzar tells this dream, he tells Daniel that I saw a great vision. It was a tree whose height reached to the heaven itself. Its leaves were that stretched into every direction. And underneath this tree, all the animals of the earth were ones that gathered and found the security. And on the limbs of this tree, all the birds of the heavens lodged. Its fruit was that provided sustenance to all the inhabitants of the earth. I looked at that, and then I heard the voice as of a watcher, and that voice had cut down the tree and leave the roots of that tree in the ground, but put a band of iron around the stump, and let it be dew of the heavens, and let it be wet with the dew of heavens, rather. And let it be that the one that is there is one that has the heart of a beast. And he's one that feeds like the oxen on the grass of the field. He's driven out from among men until 7 times passes. And then when those 7 times passes, then he will come to know that the Most High rules in the kingdoms of men and gives it to whomever he will, even the lowest of them. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar rehearsed this dream that he had seen to Daniel, the record says in Daniel 4 that Daniel was dumbfounded. He was one that was silent for a period of time. He was troubled by the dream. And the king clearly was conscious that Daniel was troubled. And so he said to him in Daniel, the 4th chapter, O Belteshazzar, for that was Daniel's Babylonian name, don't let the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble you. As we look at Daniel then, he said, O king, This dream that you've dreamed is that is to those that hate you. It is to those that are your adversaries. For it is not to your good, as one would ordinarily think, but it is that is to that which is your hurt. Now, this is the second dream that Nebuchadnezzar has dreamed. And the first dream was that while Nebuchadnezzar was a part in that image that he saw, but was composed of 4 different metals, which was destroyed by a stone that was cut out on a mountain without hands. That dream was that only incidentally discussed the matter of Nebuchadnezzar. It was that discussed 4 world kingdoms and 1 heavenly kingdom. But now this dream that Nebuchadnezzar now sees is that centers all around one man, Nebuchadnezzar. And perhaps because Daniel was troubled and speaks to Nebuchadnezzar and tells him, Nebuchadnezzar, this dream is to those that hate you and to those that are your adversaries. That perhaps may have been the reason why that that Nebuchadnezzar's counselors and wise men and magicians were ones that didn't have an answer to Nebuchadnezzar. It may have been that they understood the impulse and the import of the dream, but they were afraid to tell the dream what the dream meant, for they knew how Nebuchadnezzar had been in time past, and they knew that if it struck him wrong, that he could with a moment silence them and silence their tongues by death. We do not know. But we do know that Daniel perceived immediately what this dream was. And as he spoke to Nebuchadnezzar, he said, "You, O king, you're this tree that you've seen." And he said, "You've grown great, and you had great glory. And not only have you grown great and great glory, but you have benefited. You have fed those that are around you. And this dream that you see is that when the record says cut down the tree, it is to your hurt. It is to the loss of your government and to the glory that you've had. It is that you will be driven out from among men. You'll be like a beast of the field. You'll have the heart of a beast. You'll lose your reasoning, and you'll let the dews of heaven be that falls upon you. Your hair will grow and look like eagle's feathers, and your fingers will be like the claws of a bird. And it will be that way, O king. It will be that way until 7 times pass. And then, when that occurs, and you look to heaven, and you realize that the Most High rules in the kingdoms of men, gives it to whomever he will, that your kingdom is still secure. The band of iron around the stump is that assurance that your kingdom is still that is secure, and you'll return to your former glory. Daniel had shown to the king that the dream, he had fulfilled what the king had requested of him. The king had said, "I want to know what the dream means," and Daniel has fulfilled that. But now Daniel is going to do something else, my friends. He is going to be a friend to Nebuchadnezzar. He's going to tell Nebuchadnezzar not what Nebuchadnezzar wants to hear, but he's going to tell Nebuchadnezzar what he needs to hear. And that's the difference between being a friend and one who is not a friend, telling someone what they need to hear. And so he said, "O king, here is my counsel. Turn aside from sin. Lay aside iniquity of doing righteousness, and showing mercy to those that are poor. It may be that in doing this, that you will lengthen the time of your tranquility." Now, Daniel did not know what reaction that Nebuchadnezzar might have to the advice and the counsel he gave, but Nebuchadnezzar needed to hear it, and Daniel was going to prove to him that he was his friend as well as his counselor. And may it be said to Nebuchadnezzar's credit that he didn't fly into a rage when Daniel spoke these words. You see, long ago, the Lord said to Isaiah, "Cry aloud and spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet. Show to my people their transgressions, and to the house of Israel their sins." We need today a lot of voices raised like trumpets, showing to people our sins and our transgressions, rather than making us feel all is well with us when all is not well with us. Thank you so much for listening. We encourage you to listen Friday to our journeys to the book of Acts. And now, may the God of heaven, who is the one that is your creator, and the one in whom you live and you move and have your being, may he lighten your day. May you walk in his path, and therein you'll find rest unto your soul.